capacity to really deliver on that vision of who we are. And again, let's be honest with ourselves, we're probably not there. That's okay, as long as we're honest with ourselves that we've got some hard work to do to build the capacity to live that mission. We've got to align our operations aggressively behind that vision and mission, especially the campaign effort, especially the need that the campaign effort would align with that vision and mission. We've got to create an experience for people in United Way that sets us apart. There are lots of organizations that are results-oriented, that are efficient, that are volunteer-driven, that are locally based. The experience has to be different when you experience United Way. And maybe most of all, we have to have the courage to change. Let me conclude with these sets of thoughts. You know, that I've just gone through, I know is tough. It's hard work. It's a lot easier to be in the fundraising business than it is to be in the community change business and community leadership business. And in my mind, it's got to be personal. You have got to feel this at a gut level, because that's the only way that drives you to a point where you make the kind of decisions we have to start making. Let me share with you, if I could, why it's personal to me. You know, I grew up in an environment that was supportive on one hand, not very supportive in another. My mom and dad both immigrated to this country from Europe, neither with a high school education, raising 6 kids, doing a great job, struggling like lots of families struggled, just like your family struggled. Probably the greatest challenge we had in our family was my dad had a severe drinking problem and was a pretty mean drunk. What happens when you're in that family, and I know that many of you have experienced it or know that experience. It's not, you know, this isn't a sad story, but you go and you look for places to be outside of your house. After school, you don't want to go home. And on the weekend, you don't want to stay home. You want to go somewhere else. And you end up in somebody else's world. And I watch my brothers and sisters end up in some worlds that weren't so good for them. When I was 11, I ended up at a YMCA playing basketball. And this man took an interest in me. He was coaching a team. He asked me to come out for Little League. I'd never played baseball. Drafted me on his Little League team, got me on his basketball team, got me on his football team, started inviting me over to his house. I got to know his son, who was in a different part of town, different school, became my friend. I started hanging out with that circle of friends. They had a different point of view of life. They were going to college. Both parents were home. There were 2 adults in my life, adults, parents of friends of mine, Pete Smar and Barbara Harrigan, who adopted me as a son. They disciplined me. I've been slapped by Barbara Harrigan more than once. Set on a different path. What it did for me, after feeling the embarrassment of living on public assistance and the embarrassment of buying food with food stamps, is that there was a different way. And it wasn't because I was so strong. It was because they took an interest. Sometimes it's direct service, and sometimes it's just people. But at the end of the day, it's community. You know, the fact is that they put me on a path that I wouldn't have gotten on myself. I've made 2 promises in this business in terms of what I think we have to do right now. The first set of promises were to my colleagues when I came into this business as an intern 20 years ago. We were 21-year-old kids right out of college. There were 10 of us from across the country that ended up at Alexandria at United Way of America, and we'd go out for a beer occasionally after the tough day of class. Not that we do that anymore. And we made a promise to ourselves. We said, you know what, if anyone ever gets into a position of influence in United Way, let's don't compromise the way we're watching them compromise. Now, I understand why we compromise a little more these days. But the point is this. We sat around as kids in this business, having chosen to come into this movement, and what we cared about was human need. We were focused on community. We didn't come into United Way to be fundraisers. And the commitment we made was that we wouldn't compromise on that principle. And now here I am, with this incredible responsibility and opportunity to say that. and for us to get clear about it again. That's a promise I want to keep to my colleagues. The other promise that I made was to my mother. My mom was my best friend. And in high school, in college, and when I started working, she was the person when I came home or got on the phone, she was the one who I had the long conversations with about everything. There wasn't a major decision in United Way that I didn't make without talking to my mom. She was the most courageous person I ever knew. And the advice she gave me, and what she always asked me to think about, was, Brian, always make the decision that's right. Not easy, but right. Have the courage to make the decision, and if you don't, then walk away from it. Don't do it. I want to keep that promise to my mom as well. We need to have the courage to change. Let's have the wisdom to see what our future looks like. More importantly, let's have the courage to shape it. Let's start making some news instead of reacting to it. Let's get an attitude back in this movement, and let's get a strut back in our stride. Let's do it together. Let's become the most powerful, caring force of community change ever devised. You know, these times demand it, and it's absolutely possible. Thank you, and God bless the work that you do. Thank you. Thank you. She couldn't wait to get on stage. Thank you. Thanks, David.